All right, so the easiest way to start out with doing a sphere is to take a ball. I kind of put it in a ball first. Then I split that in half so that I can see what the half is going to look like. You want to try to smooth it out the best you can. Okay. Roll it around, try to get it as much of a ball form. Then you probably remember this from elementary school. You're going to make a pinch pot first. So what you do is you press your thumbs into the side and you kind of squish out the clay from the middle. Okay? You don't want it really thin. It's going to collapse. You want it at about a 1/4 inch-ish. Okay? It's not pretty. It's alright. Totally alright. Okay? I can also kind of tap it on the table to get my nice flat edge. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Because this is such a small piece, I don't have to really worry about kneading it to get the air bubbles all out of it. You cannot have a solid piece of clay, it will blow up. You will have air bubbles in it, but because we are pressing out the middle of it, I don't have to really so much worry about air bubbles. If you would see an air bubble, what you do is you get a tool, you just pop it, and then take your finger and go over it and just erase it. You do not want air bubbles. That is bad. Bad news. Okay, so take my thumbs again, push it in, and kind of squeeze it out to the sides. You want to get them about the same size. You'll be able to play around with it a little bit to get them to fit together. Again, not a perfect circle, that's all right. Take and just lightly tap it so I get that flat. Now, we need to score both sides. You always have to score both sides that you are connecting, or both pieces you're connecting together. If you don't, it's going to fall apart. I'm telling you right now. I've been doing this for 20 years, you guys. Take my word for it. Okay. So I'm putting my score marks in it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want some lines in there to help it grab together. Okay. Then I'm going to make some slip. I'm not using slip right out of the containers because we're working on some smaller areas. If I put water along my edges, both sides, it's going to make its own slip. And if it gets too smooth, just go back in with your tool and kind of rough it up a little bit. Slip is like your clay glue. If you don't have slip on your pieces or enough slip, it's not going to stick. Okay, so what you do is you take and you put these together, kind of squish them, and then what you have to do is you need to start working that seam to get rid of it. Now obviously this is hollow, so if I drop it, I'm going to have to start over. If I get too rough with it and squish one side too much, I'm going to have to start over. Now I can't keep a hollow piece without a hole in it. What happens to the air on the inside when I fire this? It's going to expand, right? What happens when it expands and I don't have any place for that air to go?
It blows up.
It blows up. Okay, so you're going to have to end up poking a hole in it, but what I want to do is I want to get my shape the best I can before I do that. Now this clay, you're going to get some clay that may feel a little stiffer, that's still considered plastic. You're going to have some that's a little bit softer. If it gets too stiff on you, you can always add water. Okay. If you have little spots that are cracking or rough, you can take a little bit of water, not a ton, just a little bit on your finger, and it just erases everything for you. You want to make these as smooth as you can. There should not be any rough edges. These get fired to glass. If you have a rough edge, what could happen on your hand? If I grab it or you grab it,
Cut yourself.
you're going to cut yourself. Done it many a time. So you have to be careful. But you really want to work this so that you get it as round if you're doing a sphere. As round as you can. Okay. There you have it. Okay. To poke your hole, what I would suggest is taking a tool. You want it a big enough hole because we're going to have to put a dowel through these. Okay. If you want to make sure you have it straight across, I would go through and do it like this so that you can tell where the other side is directly across. You're not going to be able to get a dowel through there if it's not straight. Okay, and then just go through and smooth everything out. Now because this is soft, it may flatten just a little bit on one side if I set it down. But if you're gentle with it, it won't be too horrible. Okay. Make sure that your hole is big enough, because what will happen is as it loses water and dries, it will shrink. So you want to make sure that your hole is big enough so that when it shrinks, it's not a big deal. Like again, you want to make sure everything's as smooth as possible. Once you let this dry, it's done. So make sure it's exactly the way you want it. Now, you're going to need to think about indentions and appliques. Indentions are where you are pressing stuff into the clay. So say I want this design to go around. I have to press this in while it's still soft. If I wait till it's leather, it won't work. If I'm carving into it, okay, if I'm carving into it, then I'm going to want to wait till it's leather hard, because then it's going to be stiff enough that it's not going to squish, and I'm going to get a really nice carved lines in there. I would not just take a pick and just draw in your clay. Don't do that. Really design with a purpose in mind. and just drawing in clay. I find kids that do that, they don't really have a plan of what they're doing, and they start drawing and it just doesn't work. Okay? If you're appliquing stuff, appliquing is adding pieces on. So if I am going to add a piece on, what I need to do again is I'm going to score both areas that I'm adding on, and then add those pieces on. Okay? Like I said, if you don't, it's going to fall right off. And then you can press it on and make it look however you want. I did not do a very good job of putting my hole in the middle. Try to make sure you get your hole in the middle. Okay? Before you get to this process, before you get to even start playing with clay, I want to see your design, and I want to see your patterns and textures and ideas of things that you are going to add onto your pieces before you even get to this point. Okay? No clay, tools, or anything else leaves this room at any time, simply because other classes need them, and our custodians do not like clay either. Okay? Everybody get the idea? If you are doing a flat shape and you are rolling clay out, so there's a trick. Now if you're making a square or a triangle or whatever, you're going to have to measure it, guys. You're not going to be able to wing it and just eyeball it. It's not going to fit together. It's going to be very lopsided. You're going to have to measure, which means rulers, which what these are. But the easiest way to get it the same is to put my clay in the middle between the two wood pieces. It's going to take a little muscle, take a little patience, a little time. Okay, I can see there's a couple air bubbles in there too. But you'll notice that that's how you get rid of an air bubble. Just press it down. Okay. So if I am going to make a cube, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to measure, cut by measuring. So I'm doing a 2-inch by 2-inch square. I'm going to get a couple of these out of here if I... Okay, so if I'm making a cube, how many of these am I going to need? 6. Okay, so you have to cut one for all the sides, and then one for top and bottom. Okay, same thing goes with slipping and scoring. You need to score your pieces, put them together. Now, you're not a machine, so they may be a little bit off. As long as they fit together and it looks like a cube or sphere or a pyramid, you know, and this stuff moves. So, like I said, it's not super easy to get together, but you're going to have to figure out how you want your pieces to go together. So what you need to do again, always first, or score first, then slip them together. And get rid of your seams. Super, super important. Okay, I even like to do a little maintenance on the inside just to make sure that it's smooth and put together. Okay, I suggest keeping your pieces up like this so that they don't get squished. If I lay it down, yeah, the pieces, it's so soft it's gonna just squish. So you're gonna want to make sure that you keep it up, kind of like building walls of a house. Okay. All right. End of each hour, you guys are responsible for putting your clay away and cleaning all of your stuff up. Okay. I'm gonna check in and see if those things down there are open. You might be able to use those little shelves down there. So, all right. So if you're not done with your design, with your pattern, your whole thing, you're gonna pick one that you like the best, and then use that one to put your pattern, design, your shape, line, whatever. Okay. All right. You can go back to the other room.